Save the Semantics, episode 335. It is August 19th, 2025. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Tuesday afternoon / evening. I decided to do one right after I recorded yesterday because I wanted to get my thoughts out on the Kirby Air Riders Direct that happened earlier today. I was able to kind of watch some of it during lunch and then some of it after work. So the footage is pretty fresh in my mind, I would say. But, the fact that it was like a 47 minute direct with Masahiro Sakurai is a very, it's nice. He always has a very distinct presentational style and a very clear kind of vision in terms of the way he approaches stuff. There is a very he has such a signature kind of approach to things, and I think it's there's a reason why the Smash reveal trailers and just anything related to Smash was so engaging was because of him and his personality. You could tell how much of himself he put into those projects, and you could definitely see that in this case as well. So yeah, I just want to talk about a little bit of it because this, Kirby Air Ride is one of those kind of it took place during a very specific moment during my childhood when I played on a GameCube. It was one of the first games that I ever played on it. And it's so funny considering the approach of buying and purchasing games back then, right? I bought, or rather, I was gifted, Wind Waker as a birthday present, super earlier on, mainly because, it was just I think, my mom mentioned, was this series is pretty well known, and it seems to be a pretty kid-friendly version of a game, so this might be perfect for me at that point. And it was just the right it was the perfect game for a action adventure game for a child, and it was obviously the rest is kind of history in terms of my love for the Zelda series. And a similar thing was with Kirby Air Ride as well, where I remember I played, I think prior to that I had played, I think on Game Boy Advance, one of the Kirby games with a friend. And I remember enjoying that quite a bit, but I didn't have a Game Boy Advance, on my own. I think I had borrowed it, or I was playing it at a friend's house or something like that. And that was the first time that I had played a Kirby game, but outside of that, I hadn't really, obviously, yeah, when you're young, you're limited in terms of what games you can play. So I was, I thought, Kirby looks fun and Kirby's cute and everything. And so I remember, I think I was gifted that as well. And, it's very different from any other Kirby game. There's no other Kirby game that's quite like Air Ride, just because it's a racing game and there's other kind of elements to it that's very unique. And, there's nothing quite like Kirby Air Ride. It is very much kind of its own thing, even outside of the Kirby series. And honestly, I think outside of that, I really haven't engaged a lot with the Kirby series. I haven't played the two, the platformers. I haven't played Forgotten World or Forgotten Land, which I do want to play that eventually. But Kirby Air Ride is kind of it's one of my favorite games when I played it when I was a kid, and it holds kind of a special place for that reason. I just remember playing so much of City Trial. That was like my absolute favorite mode. And I think I might have mentioned this before, but that kind of gameplay loop where, you start off each kind of run, quote unquote, or each sort of game, with, you start off just as like a basic, character with no abilities or anything like that, and you kind of like build up to, have like the most powerful stats and everything, and then you kind of face off at the end in some type of in either like a battle or a race or something like that, right? So that I don't know, that kind of gameplay loop really hooked me, and I think that sort of was maybe a bit of a foreshadowing of like what of other games and other types of games of that kind of style that sort of I kind of enjoy nowadays, which are like roguelikes, you know what I mean? Like where you start off, each kind of run, you start off relatively fresh, you start from the beginning, you use the knowledge that you've acquired over the course of many runs and you apply it, and then you kind of like strategize in a certain way. And that's kind of what I did when I played that game much earlier on. I think that was very telling, where there was like a specific gameplay loop that really worked for me for some reason. Yeah, that was kind of the case. So, watching this direct, Sakurai spent quite a lot of time on the City Trial section, which looks really fun and even more chaotic than it originally did on the GameCube, game. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I think one of the mistakes I did was I read some threads about the game before I watched this direct, which I felt was a little, I don't know if that was like the best approach, because then I get kind of like a little influenced by some of the things that was shown, that other people already talked about, when I should have kind of gone into it with a bit more of like a fresh mind and kind of taken away with my own opinions, right? Like whether you like it or not, or whether you like it or not, other people's kind of opinions and stuff can sometimes cloud your judgment. And I think it's sometimes easy to rely on other people and what they think to kind of form your own opinions, but that's something that I'm trying to get better about, so that I'm not like relying on too much on other people necessarily, and that I can kind of, I can do a better job of forming my own opinions without getting influenced by other people. I mean, this game looks really fun. It looks like it's like a more, just like an upgraded version of Kirby Air Ride, which I'm not, against necessarily. I am curious about, I mean, he spent 45 minutes plus going over this game, but I do feel like there are still some things that he's not like letting on. Like, I am curious if there, the amount of modes and the amount of races there are, that doesn't seem to be super clear. He did explicitly say that there is only one map for City Trial, which I think is fine. I mean, I spent so much time with the original City Trial map that it's, I never really, truly got sick of it. So, but again, maybe my tastes have changed a little bit too. So I am curious if that style is going to hold up, where I am kind of like continuously exploring this map over and over again, right? Is that gameplay going to be stale in some ways? Is that going to hold up in this kind of current generation of gaming and that kind of thing? I'm not entirely sure. That will be kind of something to keep an eye on. I am probably going to buy this. I mean, most likely I'm going to get this game when it releases in November. I mean, this has just kind of been one of those kind of dream games for me. not, and it wasn't even something that I had even considered was going to make a comeback. So the fact that it has come out is sort of a miracle in itself. So I will be getting this game, but in terms of the type of content and the type of engagement that this game has, how is that going to sort of pose in comparison to the original game? I think really for me, I think if City Trial is engaging enough in a similar way as it was with the original game, I think that's going to probably hold me over, right? And the racing was kind of like secondary, honestly, right? I mean, the fact that now you can play online is huge, right? I think online races are going to be a lot of fun. So there's going to be, that's going to be like the thing that sort of hooks me into actually doing the races themselves. Online City Trial is going to be awesome. Like, so just like a modernized version of this game is kind of awesome to me. Like, even with the limitations, like I think I might have played, Kirby Air Ride with friends like maybe once or twice, but not super often. Like, most of the time I was literally just playing it by myself and just having a blast with it. So now that there is kind of an online component, I think that's going to be huge. And that's going to be, I think that's going to fully hook me. And I think this is going to be kind of the holiday game for me, right? Going into November, December. I think this is going to be the thing that really, gets me into this, gets me just like the holiday game going into next year and stuff. So I'm thoroughly excited. I think, of course, there are, I think I have similar reservations about limitations with this game. Like, is there going to be maybe enough content to supply and to kind of keep players engaged with this game? I think the purists who have played the original game are going to be there, including myself. So this game in particular might appeal to someone like myself much more. And I think Sakurai is very clear about that, where just talking about, very glowingly about City Trial and going in depth with that mode. So I think there is like a clear sort of pandering to that fan base, which includes myself. So I think those fans are going to be there. It's more so like, is there going to be enough for other people to want to play something like this? And I think that's totally fair. Maybe there's not going to be enough for other people, but I think with the particular gameplay loop of City Trial, I think this is going to be something that's going to keep me going for a very long time. If like there's enough kind of content to supply that, and considering kind of Sakurai's sort of development philosophy, I think if myself being a fan of games like Smash Ultimate and Smash 4, I do think that there is going to be that gameplay. I feel like I can trust that there's going to be a gameplay loop that's going to hook me. There's a particular there's something that he does. I don't even know. There's like an ethos. There's a type of just approach that he has with his games, with like the UI and just the gameplay and all of these kinds of things that really sort of reinforces the idea of like fun and the idea of wanting to kind of go back and try again. There's something to it that really kind of clicks with me in particular. So I trust that this game is going to have that sort of element, right? And if it's just a better version of the original game, yeah, I'll take that. It looks great. It looks super fun. I'll probably be watching that direct a little bit more, maybe rewatching it a couple more times just to kind of get, just to see if I missed anything. But yeah, I'm very, I'm excited. I'm definitely going to be, picking that up when it, either when it comes out or, however much longer until it does come out, or however much longer afterwards after it comes out. So probably pretty shortly, and coming out in November, so not too long. And yeah, I think and then also something to consider when I was talking yesterday about comparing this to something like Mario Kart World. I think these are very different games. Like, of course, there is like the racing element of it, but the racing is completely different from Mario Kart. There's way more speed to it that I think is like emphasized with this game. And then of course you got the city trial, which is just its own thing. It's its own kind of entity, and I think that's like the thing that's going to separate Kirby from Mario Kart. But I get, like, people being like two racers in 1 year. I totally get that, but honestly, I'm fine with it. I've been enjoying Mario Kart World for what it is, even if like not everything is perfect. I mean, I love Knockout Tour in that game. I love the music and everything. I do enjoy the racing mechanics. And I think, it's its own thing. And I think it's cool that there's, like, I don't know, separation of that. But I'm excited for Kirby Air Riders. I think it's going to be a blast, and only a few more months. So that's something to kind of look forward to. So yeah, just wanted to do like a quick little update. Yeah, I'll probably record something later this week, maybe talking more about that. And then there's been a lot of announcements for games as well, so I do want to talk about that. Maybe I'll record something tomorrow, or I don't know, maybe Thursday, Friday, who knows. We'll see how that goes, depending on what I have for time and availability and stuff. But yeah, a lot of gaming stuff going on, and that's pretty exciting. Okay, a quick little recording here on a Friday night. Just wanted to do a quick catch up on some of the game releases and game announcements that have come out during this week. There is Gamescom going on in Germany, which is a gaming convention, gaming event. And so a lot of those announcements have kind of come out of that. But there's been like a few ones, like a few updates, few kind of new releases and that kind of thing that I've been really wanting to talk about, but I just haven't had the time to. And I don't know if I'm going to have the time this weekend to kind of delve into it. So yeah, I just want to spend this time to talk about that now. Let's get the big one out of the way. Hollow Knight Silksong is releasing on September 4th. After one of the most like notorious waiting periods for a video game in like video game history. A game that was announced in 2019, I think, and finally coming out in just a couple of weeks. I really enjoyed Hollow Knight. I don't know if it's a game that I would classify as one of my favorites necessarily, but it was definitely one of those that kind of broadened my perspective on indie games, that type of, Metroidvania games. Like, it is kind of that pinnacle. And I haven't delved into any other game of this caliber. I could, there's other, side-scrolling action games like Celeste. I think Celeste is kind of the other sort of indie darling that's of that caliber and of that category. But Hollow Knight is kind of its own thing for a good reason. I think it does both the action, exploration, the sort of environmental storytelling pretty well. I'm not like the biggest fan of the storytelling style, because I prefer the story to be told a lot more like directly, like I prefer it to be integrated into kind of the main, like as you play through the game, you're given more details. I think with something like Hollow Knight, there is a bit of an expectation, sort of similar to something maybe like a Dark Souls, where the lore and the story and you know, just like the world building of the game is done through a bit more inorganic storytelling, where you have to go out of your way to look for hints and clues and talk to different characters and stuff like that. Like with Hollow Knight, it's not as you know, you have to kind of piece things together, and I think people can appreciate that about the story. But whenever I read like comments about like, oh, this was such like a sad moment, I'm like, I don't really, you know, I get it, but I wasn't as attuned to specific characters and their motivations, because the dialogue is a bit cryptic, and you know, the storytelling is not exactly the most you know, it's not exactly in front of your face, which, listen, I think it respects the audience in that way, where it's like, hey, if you really want to dig into it, you can if you want to. But again, I'm just someone who prefers to have the storytelling a little bit more front and center. But regardless of that, I think it does other things so well, in terms of just just like the environments. The world in Hollow Knight was vast. Like, it just kind of kept like expanding. Like, I was like, dude, there's like another area here I had no idea about. And then, you know, on top of that, you have all of the additional like DLC and challenges that kind of come after. So I'm assuming, and I think there was a article that came out recently about you know, why it took so long for the game to come out, and it delved into kind of the fact that they just continued to sort of build upon what they already had sort of started, you know, prior to the announcement of Silksong. So, you know, I think I understand I understand the reasoning behind delaying, you know, just continuing to like not release it until they were fully confident in their product, and I respect that. I respect, you know, a rushed game is forever ruined, and you know, a delayed game, you know, whatever the quote is, I forgot who said that, but you know, I think there is value in continuing to hone your craft and build something to a certain level. I totally get that. I just think the issue was the fact that they had not communicated clearly, like, hey, listen, we're still working on it, and we're gonna be working on it for a long time. And I felt like they just never laid that out, and there were moments where it's like, you know, they put out a demo, but it just never never came out. I think it might have been 2018 when they announced it, and then they had put out an initial demo in 2019, and then radio silence, and then 2022 there was like, oh, Silksong is coming out on like Xbox exclusive, and that never happened, and then even just more quiet time after that. And then finally, we're at this point. There were rumors and stuff like that. They made the announcement that they're going to have, you know, some trailer, and then they finally gave out the date. So I wasn't in like the camp of like, you know, the people who were just like clinging on to hope that this game was real and stuff. Like, I had kind of bought into the idea a little bit that this game was just not going to come out. Kind of similar to like a Half-Life 3 situation, right? Where there had been so much discussion and industry speculation about this so-called game, and it just was never going to come out. And I was like, all right, whatever. You know, at least we got the first game. I really enjoyed it. So I had kind of like almost accepted that in a way. Not to say that I'm not excited to play this game. I mean, I think it's not like the highest priority for me. I'll definitely pick it up at some time, but yeah, it's not like, you know, I'm not. I think it's like maybe if you know, if everything that people have been expecting from it lives up to the hype and all that, maybe it's just a continued, just like an expansion of like the first game and all that, then yeah, I mean, I really did enjoy the first game. I do. It is a really great game, and I would love to get back into kind of that world and setting and stuff, but it's not like the highest priority for me necessarily, right? Maybe later this year. I don't know if I have the time, but later this year or whenever. But who knows? Maybe I'm persuaded that if the reception to it is great enough that then I'll like pick it up sooner than later, right? I mean, that's kind of what happened with me getting the Switch too, right? I just was like, maybe I'll delay it, and then I eventually got it, and I've been happy with it. So there might be a similar case with Silksong as well. But yeah, it's finally coming out. I just expect more of that type of game carried over from Hollow Knight, and yeah, I'm excited to pick that up. A few more announcements that kind of caught my attention. So, Trails in the Sky, I had completely forgotten about this. This game, Trails in the Sky First Chapter, which is a remake of the first Trails game, is coming out in September as well. And I would love to play this, and I would love to pick it up. They said that there's a demo coming out. I've been checking like the Switch eShop to see if it's been out yet. It doesn't seem to be out yet. If whenever that demo is available, I will be playing that, and I want to talk about that because that is a game that I intend on getting, because I've been meaning to get into the Trails series. It's one of those things that I've heard so many great things about. I know that it's a pretty long and extended series, and I was a little off-put by it, similarly to how I'm kind of off-put by something like One Piece, right? Where it's just like there's too much stuff, right? Too many episodes. In the case of Trails, there's too many games and stuff. But I at least want to give the first game a chance, and the fact that they've remade it and it looks really good. I love like the cell-shaded graphics and artistic design, kind of similar to how they did with like Dragon Quest 11 and like Dragon Quest 8. I love that kind of approach. So that is something that I would love to pick up. And whenever the demo comes out, I will be playing that. And yeah, I want to talk about kind of, give my thoughts on it. So that's kind of a higher priority for me. Whenever I think I can kind of like balance out Witcher 3 and Trails a little, however long the demo is. But apparently, like your save also carries forward. So like, yeah, that's an absolute get for me. So I mean, I just had sort of forgotten. Like, I didn't even like realize that they had announced that there was a release date, and it's coming out in September. That's awesome. Another game is Indiana Jones was announced. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, I believe. I think I played a little bit of it at a friend's house. I kind of forgot. I actually have to kind of confirm with him this. It's like, was I dreaming this or did I play this? But I think I did play like a little bit of it. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool. But I want to delve into it a little bit more, and I think it just based on the acclaim that it's received, it seems to be both a sort of a respectable kind of homage to the movies themselves, but also kind of doing its own thing. I think the one thing that sort of put me off a little bit about it was the fact that it was first person. Like, I'm not, like, the biggest first-person fan, because it just gives me a little bit of, I don't know, it gives me kind of some type of, like, motion thing. It's just kind of, like, affects me in a way. So I usually prefer third-person, just so I can kind of have, like, a better sense of, like, my surroundings, I guess. I don't know exactly. It's never been my preferred gaming style. But based on everything I've heard, it's great, and that's going to be coming out in 2026. So, yeah, I'll definitely check it out in the sense that I'll see how well it's like optimized for like Switch 2 and that kind of thing, and just kind of gauge the performance there. But yeah, I think that's definitely something that I will be looking forward to. Another game, also by Falcom, East 10 is going to be, there's a Switch 2 version of East 10 coming out next year. I have not played any of the other East games, but East 8 is one of my favorite games. It's like one of my favorite games, not just on the Switch, but just in general. And I've been kind of hesitant to like get 9. I heard it's good, but it's just not to the same level. The setting isn't exactly the most interesting to me. East 10 feels a lot more kind of similar to like the island setting, and then plus you get to kind of like pirate a ship and that kind of stuff. So that seems pretty fun. And if a Switch 2 version of the game is available, I will definitely pick that up. So that's been kind of a nice little announcement there. Not, again, another game where it's not like of the highest priority necessarily, but it is something that I have maybe considered, and I have considered in the past, and I do want to try to maybe take another look at it, you know. Another game is Final Fantasy Remake. So far it seems like the game runs pretty well on Switch 2 based on, you know, some people's play, you know, having a chance to try it out. And I think I will play it. Again, this is like another game where it's like, I love the original. I played that a couple of years ago for the first time, and I really loved it. But it's one of those things where it's like, do I want to, it is a new game technically, but it's, you know, based on, you know, a pre-existing game. Do I want to engage with something like that, or do I want to try something a little different? Based on like reception and stuff, you know, I've heard great things about Remake and Rebirth. So I do want to play it because, of course, like Final Fantasy, and I love Final Fantasy. If it runs well and if it's like a good game, then I'm willing to kind of give it a shot. But it's one of those things where it's less about the quality of the game and more so like, do I want to, I don't know, just like, do I want to like retread these stories? Like maybe even if there are changes, like, do I want to retread these stories and world right now, or do I want to kind of like play something else? It might not be of like the highest like priority for me right now, but good things about it. Elden Ring has had some mixed receptions. The Switch 2 version of it, it seems to not be optimized very well. It seems to have some issues with frame rates and that kind of thing, which is like disappointing. I've talked about this before where I'm not super keen on Soulsborne games. Like I just am not, it just doesn't feel like it's like my cup of tea, but everything I've heard about Elden Ring is like, it's like one of the greatest games of all time. So it's like, I feel like I should at least give it a shot. You know what I mean? And I've heard from players that aren't typically Dark Souls fans that got into this game, became big fans of it. And, you know, and they weren't ever like, you know, Dark Souls like fans. So I think there are elements of like the exploration, the world, and that kind of stuff that can appeal to me. But yeah, I guess I just have some reservation about like the gameplay, which is like a huge part of it, right? Like the action aspect of it. Like how much patience do I have for it? If I really want to get good at the game, like, do I want to, you know, I'm cool with the challenge, but I also understand I have limitations for patience as well too, and time, you know what I mean? It's like, do I want to spend like 2-3 hours trying to learn boss moves? And I get like you can do other things too, but I'm sure like in my head I would want to try to prioritize beating this one boss over anything else. So yeah, I think it's one of those things like it's a time commitment kind of thing too that I have to consider, you know. Do I want to make progress in the game, or do I want to sort of work through trying to get better at beating a boss? Like that's I don't know. I don't know if that's really I like a challenge. I like trying to get good at games, but how much of a time commitment can I handle with that kind of thing? So those are things that I've definitely considered with games like Elden Ring, and it's yeah, it's something that I have considered. Like it's just like everything I heard about it, it's like awesome and everything. So part of me wants to like give it some respect and try it out, but I also know the types of games that I like, and I know like I know I've gotten better at gauging what I enjoy, and I'm perfectly fine not having to suffer through something like that. So it is what it is. And I think there's been like a good amount of other sort of smaller releases and smaller announcements and stuff like that during this week. Sort of especially following like the Kirby Air Riders direct with Masahiro Sakurai. So it's been a pretty nice kind of hefty week for a lot of game announcements, but those are kind of the ones that stuck out to me and was the most interesting for me. Silksong, and then I guess Trails in the Sky, which I've been really meaning to get into that series for a long time. So yeah, I mean it's just great. Now more games on my freaking library, backlog kind of thing. You know what I mean? I mean the games aren't even out yet, but you know what I mean. It's just like it's never gonna end. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. Maybe that's the fun part of having gaming as your hobby, is that you'll never run out of stuff. But anyways, just wanted to do a quick little update on some stuff that I've been really meaning to talk about. I'm really, I mean, I think, I don't know, I think I'll probably check to see, I'll probably just kind of check to see once in a while to see if like the Trails demo is ready, because I do want to play it. But for the time being, I think I'll just continue to work my way through The Witcher 3. I think I'm in a decent spot. Like I don't know how much like I still think I have like a good way of the game to go. There is so much content, as I've talked about, but I'm sort of like I'm kind of balancing out like main story, like these like secondary quests and Witcher contracts and that kind of thing. So I think I'm balancing things out pretty well, and I'm having a good time with it. So that's probably going to keep my attention for a good while until I get swept up in something else. And I still haven't like fully beat Xenoblade X yet too. So that's still on the plate. I just kind of, it's one of those things where I really want to savor it. But I also kind of need to be like in the mood to like engage, because from what I've heard with the ending of Xenoblade X, there are some things with it that as a huge Xenoblade fan, obviously, I will need to kind of delve into. So I want to do that in the right headspace and all that. So that's kind of, I've been like holding off on beating that game because like I don't want to beat it too. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. Like there's a reason for me to kind of go back to it, outside of like trying to like max out everything too. So there's a lot that I still have with that game. And I still need to like fully clear out like the additional content added on with the definitive edition. So a lot of stuff there, but yeah, good things in the gaming space. I mean, at least on my side of things. So lots of things to kind of look forward to. But yeah, that's going to do it for today and for this episode. Thanks for listening as always. This has been Save the Svantics, signing off.